America and beyond. Right. There are four corners of every believer's faith, and there are four only. Now, I'm going to sound dictatorial for the next 10, 15 minutes on purpose, because I want to make sure I get this to you in the fashion that we want to. Our society is gone awry. We've already lost 2 generations of young people. And when I use the word lost, I mean they're not listening to us and we're not teaching them anything. But there are four corners of every believer's faith. And if you're not operating in these four corners, you're really missing the point of Christianity. All four of these corners that I'm going to speak about here in the next few minutes, they point to God and they point to people. Most people say, I don't want to be bothered with people, but God counts people because people count. People are important to God. In fact, they are his number one commodity that he's ever made is people. In fact, we know this because he didn't die for angels. He came to earth and embodied himself in flesh and blood to die for people. Humanity is important to God. So what are those four corners? I'm going to deal with those, and then I'm going to deal with how they relate to society. The first of the four corners is to love God. In fact, let me give you all four, and then I'll go bullet point by bullet point. Love God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, and to love your neighbor as yourself. Let me say that again. Love God with all your heart, with all your mind, all your soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. Here's the problem that we as ministers or we as communicators, here's our problem. We'll tell you that and then don't tell you what it means. Well, I'm here today to tell you what it means. I'm here today to share with you what it means to love God with all your mind, your heart, your soul, and your neighbor as yourself. What is my heart? I mean, I had this question growing up. How I love God with my heart? As a kid, you have a childish intellect. So, I take my heart out. How do I love God with my heart? Well, your heart spiritually is the deepest personal identity that you have. What is the deepest personal identity? What do you identify with the most? Love God with that. Love God with your heart, with your deepest personal identity and intellect. Number 2, love God with your mind. What is that? That's intelligence and it's character. Character comes from the mind. What goes on in your mind is what you act out in society. So we need to love God with our intellect, our intelligence, and with our character. It's amazing to me, people that I have known, let's say, growing up or from school or known them in the community, smart as a whip, get in church and all of a sudden they dumb. They don't know when to pay their bills and what they should do. They need counsel about paying a light bill. You don't need counsel about paying a light bill. Pay the light bill. Love God with your mind. Love God with your soul. What is my soul? It has been described as I think, I feel, I want, I think, I feel. But let me break that down. It's the deepest emotional connection that you're able to give. Your soul is your deepest emotion. That's why when somebody hurts you in the soul, most people can't forgive. Hey, I'll say this, and I say this a lot when I go out and speak. I'll say, I'm the best friend you could ever have. You cannot, now that sounds cocky, it's true though. You cannot have a better friend than Devan A. Taylor. But guess what? I'm the worst enemy you can have. I absolutely, I'm going to use a worldly term. I absolutely suck at forgiving. Oh man, I'm a great friend, but I am terrible when I'm your enemy. That's why I try to stay away from that. Because when I'm your enemy for real. And it's hard for me to forgive you when you wronged me. So what do? I try to stay away from that. My deepest emotional connection. That's why I ask you to forgive. You think it's easy to forgive your neighbor? You think it's easy to forgive somebody that has wronged you? No, it's not. Every time you see them, every time you think about them, those emotions and those thoughts come up. You almost think, are they going to do what they done again? So God said, give it to me. And most of the time he works that out for you in your favor. And then to love your neighbor as yourself. What is that? What is loving my neighbor as myself? I describe it as the deepest form of giving and sharing you have. When you love your neighbor as yourself. The deepest form of sharing and giving that you can have is to love your neighbor as yourself. I'm actually going to treat you the way I would treat me. That's not easy to do. That's not, you can talk it all you want to, but that's not easy to do. In my book, Rotten to the Core, I was told, say, man, you jumped on one of the most controversial subjects. I did. This book, I attempt in 12 chapters to solve the problem of racism from a biblical perspective. It's really easily solvable. Most things that we call racism isn't. There's really no such thing as racism. I'm going on record. I know that sounds stupid. What do you mean? Well, we gave it a term. You know what it really is? It's races competing against each other. When I'm from Kansas City, last year we played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Everybody in our city for 2 weeks. I hate Tampa. Do we really hate people from Tampa? No, we just don't want them to beat us. And with me not wanting you to beat me, I get in competition with you, and then all of the evil things from that. That's why the Bible says that from envy stems all form of malice and contention. When envy is there, guess what? Hatred is next door. So let's cover it real quick, and then we'll get into the deeper parts. Love God with all your heart. Love God with all your mind. Love God with your soul. And then love your neighbors yourself. I think he left that one for last on purpose. Because really, if you can master the first three, first of all, if you can love God with all your heart. You know, I love God, but do you really love him with all of your heart? I mean, that's not easily done. It takes giving of yourself, and it takes you closing out your identity. I play basketball twice a week when I'm able to, when I'm in town. And I play against a lot of former athletes. Some of you may know John Mayberry, Freddie Patek, a lot of the Kansas City Royals. I've done some chaplain work for them and for the Kansas City Chiefs. So, you know, every Tuesday from 10 to 1 we play. And I mean, we are competing. And I'm in pretty good shape. You know, so I'm competing pretty hard with these guys. And when we are playing, these guys do not want to lose. Some of them are in their 70s. We are competing strongly with one another. So I'm giving of what? I'm giving of myself, and I'm giving of my identity. And the focal point there is to try to win. And you know what they do? They always remind me, he's the preacher. You know, as if the preacher is supposed to be a loser. No, the preacher don't want to lose. I'm trying to win like you are. So yes, I'm defending you hard. I'm not going to go overboard, but I'm defending you so I can win. So as believers, here's what we ought to do. Let me take that disclaimer. This is what society should be doing. Because there are four corners of the faith, and I'm going to point you to all four of them. All four of them point to people, and they point to God. But as believers, the first thing, what should we do as believers? We should first be aware of what we want. I had a man come to me once. He said, Pastor, I want you to help me. You know, he kind of sounded like that, so I hope he don't hear his voice. And I want you to help me because I want to do some things to change the world. And I said, really? I said, do you have any money? He's like, I ain't got no money. I said, well, go get some money first. Because if you're going to help somebody, you got to have something. So a lot of people think they can, maybe you need to assist somebody that's already helping the world and then connect that way. But if you don't have anything, you can't help anybody. So as a believer, what should I do? Or as a human being, what should I do? I should be aware of what I have. I need to look in my little bag of life. What do I already have? And then what do next I should be what? Be aware of everything that I need, and then ask yourself, what do I have to give? All right? Because if your whole Christianity and life is based off what you can get, you're not operating in the four corners of God's faith. It's not about what all you have. It's what do you have to give also. You ought to reach in that little bag of faith and pull you out a big handful of everything you need. And then you need to look at what you have and pass out a big handful of what you already have. You used to, as a kid, you never want to give up nothing, but maybe once every month, every 2 months, I see my mom going around. We was really poor. I was so poor, as a kid, we flunked lunch. We used to eat cereal with a fork. We passed the milk to our brother. Some of y'all catch that tomorrow. What am I saying? She would take bags of clothes and take them to the thrift store. I'm, I wanted that. Yeah, boy, that old shirt, wore it out. Make room for something else. And it taught me a great lesson and a principle. When you give something away, more can come to you. But we're a society now that's just dealing with what all can I have? God bless me. What can I get? You're getting to give. The four pillars of the faith is all about people. Who are you giving it to? Who are you helping? You know what I ask myself? This is how I check my Christianity or my believerhood. I ask myself this question. Am I anyone's first call when they're at their lowest point in life? Am I the first call that they're going to make? I had a guy, he got out of prison, and I had been talking to him while he was in prison. He would call, had little 15-minute messages. So he said, man, when I get out, I really want to get on track. And to be honest with you, people say stuff you think, you can get out of jail, go right back to what you was doing, and I've done my part. You always want to feel like you've done your part. Well, he called me and asked me for a job. And I was stuck. I'm like, I start feeling that twinge you get like, huh? He said, yeah. He said, I told them that you had a job for me, and I own a chain of restaurants. I said, well, all right. And I was nervous, but I gave him a job. Now he works for Ford, and he's only. But you know what I thought about? Tears came to my eyes. I was the first person this man called. I was the first person that he reached out to, knowing I was a believer. Now, what if I'd have turned him down? And he went back to doing the drugs or whatever he was doing? I would have nothing to say to God except I failed you. I needed to give him that chance. So that's what it is about. Are you that first? What are you? Are you anyone's? Maybe you're not everybody's. Nobody can connect with everybody. We're all called to something. One lady came to me and said, yeah, I'm called to the world, Pastor. She wanted me to ordain her real quick. I'm called to the world. I said, okay, I guess the Lord don't need the rest of us. He ain't called you to everybody. God is geographical. He is tactical. He is sound. He knows who to hook you up with, who to connect you with, and where to connect you, what city you should be born in, all of that. Now, you don't know. You're discovering it as you go, but he already knows. So ask yourself, are you anyone's first call when they're at their lowest point or they're in their greatest point of need? That's Christianity. When you're somebody's first call, you say, okay, I'm doing all right here. Because you say, well, why would I do that? Because here's what you need to know. That at your worst point, the worst thing you've ever done in your life, any of us, and we've all done some stuff. Some of you, all of us got skeletons in the closet. Some of you got skeletons in the closet with meat still on the bone. Okay? But the bottom line is are you anyone's first call? Or have you screwed up in life? Sure, you've screwed up. I have, you have. But you know what Jesus is doing when you mess up like that, or you've jacked up? You know what he's doing? He's at the doorway saying, beloved, come unto me. All you that labor and are heavy laden, and I'll give you rest. In other words, I've messed up beyond my ability to repair it. And he's saying, beloved. He's calling me beloved. That's what somebody should see from you, from your character. You have to build this. This is not instantaneous. You have to build it. I'm going to give you 3 gems and then we're going to go. true faith reaches in the bag and get a handful of what you need. Then it looks around and gives a handful out. What does love do? I wrote a book called Love Does. And the whole book just says love does. And then it says it does what? It always does 4 things. Every time I'm in a counseling session with a married couple, and every problem that I've ever seen stems down to these 4 things or the lack thereof. Love does 4 things. What are the 4 things that it does? Love provides service. Love provides effort. Love provides time. And love provides inclusion. And without them 4, you don't have love. God so loved. He's the only one that can so love. God so loved. We don't have the ability to so love. We can love. We don't so love. But God so loved the world. What did he do? Provided a service. He gave his what? He became his only begotten son, reinvented himself in humanity, incarnate, and came and said, okay, I'm going to die for those that I created because they can't die for themselves. He provided a service for you when you didn't even want him. Love does what? It does 4 things. Serves, has effort. You can always tell when an athlete is really not serious. Kyrie Irving, his career, well, I'm going to leave that alone. I might get in trouble. Cancel culture might come after me. Well, we all know. When you love a thing, you go for it. Think about all of the money that Dr. J and Michael Jordan and LeBron James was making while they were playing. And they're sweating harder than you and I. They're going to the hole, falling down, getting knocked over, getting paid $26 million. I mean, after 2 years of that, I'd be kind of like, I don't think I love basketball as much. It's probably why I'm not a pro. I'm not that in love with it to keep doing it that hard, having already got the fruit in the road. But when you love the game, you provide effort and service to it. Anything you love, you're going to give yourself to it. And you're going to include yourself in it. So these are the 4 pillars. And if these don't exist, if your love does not provide these 4, it's not the love of God. I'm going to end with this, and hopefully the cameraman will follow me because I feel like I want to walk a little bit. I look at the parents and the church and nowadays like this. There's a little story. Some of you in my audience, you know, y'all have all, by show of hands in here, how many have heard or seen or know a little bit about the story or heard of Peter Pan? Remember Peter Pan? It's a very unique story if you read it. And the story of Peter Pan goes like this. I'm going to summarize it for you so I can get out of the way. Peter Pan somehow was the boy that never could grow up. Remember? Peter Pan didn't want to grow up. And in the process of not wanting to grow up, he got disconnected from his own shadow. So Peter Pan was walking around and he's over here, but he sees his shadow over there. Peter Pan is disconnected from his shadow. I believe parents and the church is a picture of Peter Pan today, running around disconnected from their own shadow. Your shadow is you casted on the ground. You see a picture of what you really look like. That's why people don't like to look in the mirror. But Peter Pan is disconnected, so he goes from here, place to place, trying to reconnect with his shadow. And finally, he catches up with it. Now, some of you, I know, I can see you now. I can't wait. I'm going to go see if this preacher is right. I'm going to read the story of Peter Pan. Well, I've read it for you. He finally catches up with his shadow, and like a dumb man, he tries to reconnect with his shadow using soap. He takes bars of soap and he's trying to connect himself. He thinks washing himself is going to... So he had a friend in the story named Wendy. Wendy came and said, no, Peter, you don't need to use soap to reconnect with yourself. I need to sew you back together again. This gets good. I need to sew you back together. So she got him to stop, and she began to sew. And I know this is a fictitious story, but it has a heavenly meaning. She starts sewing him together again. You know who Wendy is? Wendy is God, my friend. We're running around as the church telling people how blessed they can be and God's about to do this for you. And we are disconnected from our own shadows. We have lost a sense of our own purpose. Parenting it's all about what you do for your children and how you raise them to be the next productive citizen. That should be of absolute, ultimate importance to you. What can be more important than for the legacy that came from the legs of a woman to come into society and be productive? We're running around, the church has disconnected. Why do you think we have a welfare system in America? There would be no need for the welfare system if the church took the money that it has raised over the years and provided humane and humanity services. The government would pour money to us. Hey, you guys do it better than us. We don't want to deal with those people, but you have a heart for those people. We would get the millions and billions of dollars, and we would be no need for the welfare system because the church would be doing what it should be doing in society. Providing for the poor and the needy and the homeless and the fathers and the dejected. That's what our calling is, right? But we're disconnected from our shadow. And when we don't catch up with it, we're trying to put it together again with soap. In other words, things, material things. What I have to make you look at me. Am I as successful as Tyler Perry? Tyler Perry needs me. I don't need Tyler. Tyler needs what I got. These people need God. Because the Bible said in Proverbs chapter 9, verse 10, it says that the fear of God is the beginning of all wisdom. And knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. Let me finish to close out this Peter Pan thing. That scripture is just burning in me now. So Peter Pan gets sewed back together with his shadow by Wendy. God wants to stitch us up. Don't be afraid to say I've messed up. I think the greatest thing that I'm going to do in the next 4 years is, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go on a world tour basically repenting to young people that I shouldn't be knocking you for your pants being pulled down because I'm the one that raised you. My mother wouldn't have tolerated it. My mother had a foot on my neck growing up. She didn't let that foot off until I was grown and gone. But what we did is, this generation, we let these kids raise themselves and do what they want to. And I want Johnny to have better than I had. And now Johnny's cussing you to your face, and Johnny is killing people, and Johnny is in and out of prison, and Johnny is a mess. Johnny wants to be transgender. Johnny wants to be lesbian. Johnny wants to be whatever because Johnny hasn't been taught who God is. If you teach anybody who God, what is the fear of God? It's not standing in a corner, trembling, afraid of him. It's not me living in terror of God. It is the constant intellect of God's presence. And thus, I modify my behavior because of it. You remember going to church with your parents, or if the coach walked in, you modified your behavior, right? Because of what? An authority higher than you is in the room. I remember playing basketball, college, high school. Coach come in, everybody get on the line. We're gonna run the stripes until y'all get it. Now, that was not making me a better shooter. I told the coach that. He said, well, you're gonna sure have enough wind to do it. What was the coach telling me? He's telling me, hey man, if you're not in shape, people that are not in shape, it makes cowards of all players. In other words, get reconnected with our shadow. Our shadow is to serve humanity. If we simply serve humanity with the perfected goods that we have in the Bible, in the kingdom of God, society will magically, I hate that word, come back together again. Here's my last point. All we have to do is go back to Proverbs 9, verse 10. The fear of God is the beginning of all wisdom. In fact, you haven't even began to have wisdom until you connect it to the fear of God. Your continuous awareness of the presence of God. In fact, just practice his presence. If you know he's present, God is seeing this. God is booking this. God is judging this. Tell your children that. I see mothers come on TV, and I know you probably have seen it. They on the news, somebody's kid's been shot in a drive-by. A 3-year-old boy, senseless. A 3-year-old child, senseless, has been killed. I'm sick and tired of it. I know you've heard that, and you might have heard the church uses this one. Enough is enough. The world don't think enough's enough. Enough is enough. Enough ain't enough for them. The only thing that's going to bring them into any form of arrest is the fear of God. When a man don't fear God, there's nothing else he needs to fear. So I'm going to close there, and hopefully what I've shared is going to help somebody. And I'd like to also thank IGBN, I'm sorry. I don't know why I got an S in my mind. The Gospel Broadcasting Network for this opportunity to be able to share with the world the fruits of, let's reconnect with our shadow. And let's let God do it. How do I do that? Simple. Apply what you know about the Word to your personal life. Ain't that simple? Isn't that simple? Apply what I know to do to my daily actions, and everything is done. This has been brought to you by the IGBN.org, the Gospel Network. Hey, watch this channel all the time, because you're going to get good gems like this. Your friend and brother, Pastor Devan A. Taylor. God bless you.